So we were just talking about the fact that it was within the Bible. Back up just a little bit. We were reflecting on the idea of like, why is it so taboo to wrestle with your belief in God, in the Christian faith? I was speaking to you about Chris Llewellyn. He's the lead singer of Ren Collective, and he just released he's starting to release an album that you could definitely tell he's going through a deconstruction process and just like searching for like, I have all these questions, I have all these things, these beliefs that I'm starting to wrestle with. And we talked about like, he's literally, there's 2 dice on the album cover because he's literally rolling the dice because he is, risking everything. He's risking being dropped by his label. He is risking losing fans and potentially losing his income by being honest about his unbelief or changing of his beliefs. And I don't understand why that seems to be a problem in Christianity today, in the sense that you're not supposed to question, you're not supposed to wrestle with your beliefs, you're supposed to be secure in your beliefs. And there's so many stories in the Bible of wrestling with unbelief, wrestling with God, literally wrestling with God. Isn't that what Israel means? To wrestle with God.
Yeah.
And so,
and the opposite of that, the opposite of that is the word Islam, which means to fully surrender, submit to God. So you have a juxtaposition between the origination of the monotheistic religions, Hebrews, with the call to wrestle with God and the submission to God. And so again, you have a juxtaposition there.
So what is a healthy way that we could view that, as far as like, it is, you almost want to like reach out to these people and just be like, dude, it's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you a worse Christian. Like, you almost need like a support group for people that are going through this, because it's like, you almost feel bad. You almost feel toxic. You could be ostracized by your community that you've been a part of for your whole life.
That's a really important psychological aspect to it for a person who is going through that process. Because what has become impermeable, right? Impenetrable have been the beliefs, the doctrines, the creeds, like these statements made by men, written by men, have become surrounded by such aggressive protection that when you begin to look at them and begin to question them, like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense now. I can understand how it made sense in that time period, in that culture, that history, that political environment. And what begins to happen is the ostracization is, there's nothing wrong with this. There's something wrong with you. And when you have multiple people who believe that, it just strengthens and galvanizes the feeling of self-toxicity. Like, there must be something wrong with me. Because all these people are protecting this document that really doesn't have, or this teaching, this doctrine that doesn't really make sense. Because again, man, when you think about it, if you believe that you're Napoleon, you're going to be very alone in that belief, right? There's not going to be very many people who share that belief with you. So therefore, when multiple people call into question your belief that you're Napoleon, you begin to go, okay, well, I must not be. And in the same way, when you have all these people who've been indoctrinated to believe certain things about Christianity, like literally billions, and you begin to poke questions, they all turn toward you and say, there's something wrong with you. That has the same effect as me believing I'm Napoleon, right?
Right.
It has the same psychological effect of being alienated from that. And I think what's important is to really dig in and to see what matters most in this text, so I can focus on what most matters. Do these ideas about marriage really matter when you have a plethora of different sort of illustrations and examples of what is a quote-unquote biblical marriage?
Right.
Like, dude, we're talking dozens of different biblical marriages. And it's not just one man and one woman. So what is the point of this? Well, it goes back to the story of Adam and Eve, the myth of Adam and Eve. Like, it's not good for a person to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not good. And we know this from solitary confinement. It's just not good for us to be alone. You have to be in community. You have to be in relationship. And we see the psychological effects, emotional effects of a person who chooses to become reclusive. So again, the healthy way is to do that investigation, that searching, that questioning in community.
Right.
So if he's doing this alone because he feels that he's going to be alienated, then it's going to be a very hard trek. You need to come to a place like Suncoast, where we're all on that journey of asking the right questions.
Or at least just being honest with, I bet you if you like pulled people in most churches, like, especially younger people, like, hey, do you have questions?
Yeah.
I would think that most of them would.
So Karl Marx wrote this a long time ago. He's often criticized for his economic theory, which I agree, the criticism is justified. But his philosophy, man, about knowledge, epistemic understanding, is brilliant stuff. He says each generation will only ask questions for which it already handily has the answers for. So it's the setting of questions that concern me. Like, what questions are legitimate versus what are not. So, like, for instance, when I talk to atheist people, it seems as though any question for which God is a proper answer to gets left off the table or is considered, nonsensical or whatever, illogical. Right. Which I go, well, then you're setting the agenda for the questions, and that's not real science. Science entertains all questions. The same thing for Christianity. They're falling prey to the same sort of false, what was illogical nature of what questions can I ask about the Bible that you're not going to deem nonsensical? What questions can I ask about Jesus, the resurrection, hell? So it's as though they've set this parameter around what questions are legitimate and what questions are not. But yet people like us are going, no, you don't get to dictate what questions are appropriate or legitimate or logical. We're going to ask these questions because they befit the experience of life, right? And from that, I think that it bleeds into a lot of the sermon we talked about on Sunday, is when I step foot into that river, when I make the choice, I'm going to ask these questions. It's not just about faith to trust God with my job, my family. It's also faith to go, God, I have these questions, and this is a river I'm unfamiliar with. I'm not gonna just simply approach it. I'm not gonna step near it and kind of look over the side and see what questions are being asked. I'm gonna freaking step in this thing and go all in, and I'm gonna ask the tough questions. But I know you're with me, and I know this community's with me. And that if there are questions that I ask for which there are no good answers for, I still don't have to drown in the river. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, that, I think, is so important, dude, is to do this deconstruction and, more importantly, reconstruction within community. Yeah. And to take a memorial from that, like the sermon says, take a rock out and remember this moment. For me, I have a Bible, and it's really sort of contradictory. I have the Apologetics Bible that I used to read, dude. Like, I must have read that thing 30 times. Yeah. Because it went through, it not only gave you scriptures, gave you like the apologetical method in which, that's right, faith, dude. Yeah.
If you ever get into an argument or a debate with an atheist, these are the points you make.
That's exactly it. And I loved that Bible, man, when I was doing my master's degree, when I was very much more evangelical. And there was a day I wanted to like throw it away, but I kept it. It sits on my shelf at my home, in my office at home. And people will notice it. Like, some people will notice it, and they'll say, what is that? And I go, it's a memorial of the death of a belief that I had, that somehow these truths, traditions needed defending when they actually needed deconstructing.
Right.
And I think that's the difference. When we begin to see that some of these things need to be deconstructed and then reconstructed with a more I don't even want to say resilient or robust or anything like that. They just need to be reconstructed in a manner that is consistent with the experience of life, with what I know to be true, that which corresponds to my reality. And I can reconstruct those things in such a way that I can look at the Bible and say emphatically, the Bible has lots of historical errors in it. It has lots of contradictions in it. Mm-hmm. You know, you asked me one time, what do you think of the Bible? I said, the Bible's true. Mm-hmm. And some of that stuff actually happened.
Yeah. Because there are things that are historically accurate in the Bible.
Absolutely.
But we can prove that are good.
Yeah, there are things that are historically accurate in Plato's Republic, but I don't treat that as the Word of God.
Right.
There are things that are accurate in history books, but we don't treat that as like the Word of God. Mm-hmm. We just say, oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. If it's true, we should find archaeological evidence that corresponds to this. But in no way does that say, oh, this is God's Word.
But I also think that we spend too much time defending the Bible and not enough time listening to what it says.
Yeah.
And like actually practicing some of the things that are in there.
Yeah, I'd say how can you defend it if you've never read it?
Right.
Like,
well,
I think, and a little bit of history. Like, read Isaiah. Isaiah gets it wrong. Like, he is absolutely inaccurate in his history of the different chiefs and kings of his time. Like, yeah, but that doesn't cause me this sort of ethical sort of dilemma, this existential crisis. Mm-hmm. I would expect that if I knew this was a book written by men. Mm-hmm. Yeah, inspired by God, yes. But still, I can still be inspired by God and get stuff wrong, you know, because I'm human, dude.
Well, I think one of these is just the problem of I've been learning more and more that when you don't spend enough time thinking about something, you become less and less certain of things when you spend time thinking about them. Mm. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I'll expand on that idea. As a Christian growing up, I never really spent time thinking about the Bible, thinking about theology, thinking about the history of where all of this came from. And I was ready to defend my faith and defend that Bible to the death.
Yeah.
But I had not thought about it.
Yeah.
And the more I think about these things and the more I learn about these things, then it's like my certainty becomes uncertain. Mm-hmm. And my questions become deeper and deeper. And when you listen to someone who has spent, someone like you, someone like Larry, that has dedicated a good portion of your life studying, and you guys say, I don't know, how am I supposed to be an authority? How am I supposed to be certain of anything when it comes to this stuff?
Right.
You know, so it's like, I think that's true in life in general. I think not enough people spend enough time thinking about something to be so certain of it.
Yeah.
You know, if that makes any sense. And I think this is a thing that we just need to really, really spend the time to think about.
Yeah. But I would ask the question, why were you so adamant about defending it? And I think it has very little to do with the belief you had about the text or the doctrine or whatever. And it had more to do with your identity and how your identity was sort of encapsulated in a community that shared that belief. And so you were more interested in defending your community than any belief the community had. The same for me, dude. Like, we grew up in very similar situations regarding, like, the charismatic movement.
Right.
Like, dude, I don't speak in tongues. Any of that. Now, I may have faked it or whatever, been emotionally charged to just follow the herd, you know. But I was willing to defend that as a truth, you know, only because my identity was encapsulated with that community who believed it, you know. Nothing wrong with that. We do that all the time. But when you begin to employ critical thinking, like really critical thinking, then you begin to say, I don't believe this anymore, but I still love these people. And I still appreciate the reasons that they hold these things.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm talking about Sunday, man. There was a time for everything.
Yeah.
There's a time for everything. there was a time for me to go through that sort of experience in the charismatic church, because it formed within me things I still use today. Like, it ignited a passion for God in me that still resides today. But I realize I can let go of all of the superfluous stuff,
Right.
and still hold on to this passion, because the passion is true. And my hope is that when I preach on Sundays, it's not for entertainment purposes. It is because I believe this, and I believe that this can change your life. So there was a time for me when I was really interested in liturgy, like more of a docile worship experience, not like what we have here. And I worked at a very progressive church called Kessler Park Methodist Church, and it was choirs and liturgy. And dude, I needed that at that time in my life to be contemplative and reflective, because that's where my thinkerly self came into proximity with divinity. Like, I was really contemplating these things. So for us to throw everything out, man, I think is to do an injustice to what it's formed us to be.
Right.
You know, that's kind of how I'd respond to that, man. You know.
Yeah. No, I love that this sermon piggybacked off of last week.
Yeah.
You know, so he calls me, you know, I'm going. And I love that, you know, the main theme of this was like, he's with you. I think that's just like a really important reminder.
Yeah.
Even all the way through, even if you fail, even if you come to the end of your life and it's like, well, God, I thought you were going to save me. It's like, no.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just here. I'm with you. And I think those are like the larger philosophical, theological questions for another conversation. But just the mere fact that you have the comfort of God being with you through whatever it is.
Yeah.
And even through your doubt, through your pain, even when you need to wrestle with him for a little bit, he is there.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, really good truth. And just like that moment of like reflecting on that. And that's what I always encourage people to do during music is like, just reflect on the beautiful thing that we're all being a part of right now, of just like, of coming together, of singing these songs, of contemplation and reflection, and just remembering like, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for everything.
He's with, you know, that's one of the things Larry said that I thought was really simple but profound, right? It's one thing for me to say to God, here I am, hineni.
Right.
But it's to hear it back, to be reassured. And I'll close by saying there was a moment, dude, one of the most beautiful moments I have ever seen in my life. I was at, they called it General Conference. So it's the Methodist Church. The local Methodist churches get together in their conference. And they argue about certain legislation and laws that are in the Book of Disciplines. And dude, they are
going at it.
Oh, they are going at it, dude. Like, obviously homosexuality has been the one at the forefront.
Right.
You have deeply conservative, deeply sort of progressive. But there was a moment, man, where you're hearing these leaders, these superintendents and pastors vehemently disagree. And the bishop will go, let's stop. And hands would lift and they would worship together, bro. Like the most beautiful, contradictory thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
With two guys who absolutely disagree on this doctrinal position,
right.
Arguing, pointing at each other, disagreeing, quoting scripture, philosophy, and then holding each other, lifting their hands to worship God. I was like, what the hell's going on here? This is amazing.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is an image of kingdom mentality.
Yeah.
Is I'm not going to change your mind. I'm not going to change your mind. Because again, perspective is one thing, but proximity matters a lot as well. And as long as we're in proximation to God, which we always already are, it's gonna work itself out, dude. Things are gonna be made more beautiful than they are right now. And you just have to trust that.
Right.
Like you look at America, we still have our problems, but look at America 50 years ago.
Right.
Like it's a much more beautiful place than it was even then.
Yeah.
And so forth.
Yeah.
And I think the church can be that. So
I agree. So we're coming into Summer at the Movies, which is one of my favorite sermon series. You introduced this last year.
Yeah.
So the first week up is Footloose.
Footloose.
So I'm going to get my skinny jeans on.
Let's go.
We're going to sing Footloose. Do you want to give us like a little teaser of what it's going to be about?
Just a little teaser. The name of the sermon is called It's Time. Like, it's time. It's time for the church to become what it needs to be in this time. Not 100 years ago, not 50 years ago. But what does the church look like for this time?
Yeah.
And it's going to be freaking game-changing, bro.
I love
Absolutely.
it. I love it. I'm so excited. Well, thank you for being on the One More Thing, Troy.
You got it, man. See ya.